Hi, I'm Angela.
And I'm Trish, and we're here to talk about
Bad words in business. The business of closing deals, calling out the BS, and navigating the chaos of life.
because contracts aren't the only things that need fine print.
Good morning.
Hello, hello. It's been a while, but hey, here we are.
Yeah.
Back for another episode.
Welcome back to Bad Words in Business. Today we have a special guest named Lynn Zielasko. And we asked Lynn to be here because Lynn is a crazy woman who does all the stuff. She is an entrepreneur, a realtor, a mom. She literally does everything. She has some sober living houses that I can't wait to hear all about. She's always on a journey and I love it. I think it's amazing. And so I look forward to talking and having you tell us your story.
It's been a while since we've talked, so we have a lot of catching up to do. So, Lynn, take us away.
Tell us about Lynn. What got you to where you are today? Obviously, we know there's a lot of story, but give us the basics to how you got to where you are today, because your journey today is completely different than the journey you were on even the last couple years, right? You've been on this journey for a couple years, and before that you were on a different one. And I think it's amazing what you've done. So tell us how you got to where you are today.
Oh gosh. Lynn, this is my 21st year as a real estate agent. I was 27 when I got my real estate license. So you do the math. I am a mom. I have 4 kids ranging from 9 to 31. I have 4 grandkids ranging from 9 months to 10. I have been married and divorced 3 times. I have been engaged once and that went away. I am now currently engaged. Let's see. I am the definition of fail forward.
You failed gracefully.
I don't know about that, but I am constantly in growth. I am constantly I had my first kid when I was 16. She was born with birth defects, right? So that was like, hey, hi, you're now an adult and you have to deal with that. I bought my first house when I was 18. I've been a homeowner for 30 years. I always liked to do, I always liked looking at houses and real estate stuff. And I got my real estate license when I was 27. So before that, I was a hairstylist, loved doing hair. I've always had addiction problems, whether it was addiction to drugs or alcohol or men or food or gambling or shopping or houses. Anything that I did became an addiction. And I had a lot of fun in real estate for a very long time. And I was very good at real estate because I'm a people person, because it's very easy for me to talk to people. People usually like me, but then there's people that are very intimidated by me because I am a powerful person, powerful woman.
You have a strong personality. You just
I have a very strong personality. Yeah.
You know what you want when you want it, and you'll make it happen. I think that's
usually. I had a lot of, I kind of grew up in my real estate office. There's some very core people there who have helped me along the way and kind of guided me and, put me in different positions. I was the team leader. I was the productivity coach. I've been a mentor. I'm a mega agent, which to me is silly because I see so many people that are doing so much more. And I'm like, how am I a mega agent? But anyway, and then about the end of 2020, I decided I needed to make a change. I lived in my house for 21 years. I raised my oldest 3 kids and I just was ready for a change. That property had a lot of baggage and a lot of just negativity around it. And I was just ready to move on. And so I ended up buying a house, bought that house just literally like 4 miles away. So I didn't go very far. Lived in that for a short period of time, but that sort of opened my door to investing. And I had heard for many years, buy, 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 buy. We all know who I'm talking about. And so I started buying. And by selling one house, it has turned me into, so 5 years later, I own 8 houses. And they were rental properties. Some of them I've bought traditional, some of them I've bought with creative financing, but I thought I would dabble in the Airbnb business. That's a pain. I don't love it. I thought I would dabble in, just traditional rentals. I don't like chasing people for rent. And I ended up deciding I wanted to move to Eastern Washington in the beginning of 2022. So 4 years ago, I moved to Eastern Washington, sold that house, and my life dramatically changed. I became the team leader at another real estate office. And then I actually came back over to the west side of Washington for a training. And that night I came over and the office that I have been at for forever was having a happy hour. And Lynn's always the first one to arrive at happy hour. And Lynn was also the last one to leave happy hour. And what ended up happening was Lynn got white girl wasted like she always did and crashed her Tesla. We don't know where. We don't know how. We just know that the Tesla got crashed and somehow I made it home to my sort of temporary housing over here. And I woke up the next morning knowing that I had to drive to Seattle and sit in a training full of KW agents all day. And I thought I was going to die. I was miserable. I felt like shit. I hope I can swear on this podcast, but I'm going to assume I can.
It's called Bad Words in Business.
It's almost mandatory.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that I am definitely capable of that. So I went to that training and it was the longest fucking day of my life. And I made a decision that morning. I looked at the person that I was with that morning before we even went to the training. And I said, I'm never doing this again. I'm never drinking again. I'm never putting myself or anyone else at risk. And January 13th, 2023, I quit drinking. And my life in the last almost 3.5 years has like the trajectory of what I have done and what I have accomplished is just absolutely amazing. I got sober. I didn't go to treatment. I didn't do, the things that a lot of people do. I went to meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. And I had a great sponsor and I cried my way through a lot of things.
Most people can't say this. Most people don't do this.
What's that?
Just, they don't get sober. They don't see their mistakes. They don't change their life.
I mean, I was 45. I was done, right? And that's when it happens, is when you finally have an awakening. Like, they call it a spiritual experience. And like somebody literally hit me over the head with a 2x4 and said, look, dummy, are you done? Because I'm done. I'm done with that life. I'm done driving around with my kids in the car intoxicated. I'm done driving. It was just ridiculous, and Ange, I know that you were a part of that at one point and you saw the best and worst.
I've seen her in real life.
Oh boy. I believe it was in New Orleans was when some real interesting things happened. What happens in New Orleans stays in New Orleans. And so I just decided that was not going to be my way of life anymore. I ended up moving back to Western Washington about 9 months after I got sober. And it was really hard. That life that I had previously left to go start a new life did not look the way it did. It didn't feel the way it did. It was just, everything was hard. And I had to stop associating with everyone that I had associated with for my entire adult life, for my safety, for my sanity, and just to be able to continue to stay sober. So I don't want to say I was a recluse because I wasn't and I'm not, but I definitely just stayed away. And there's a train. Oh, we're in Marysville.
Yes, we are.
That's funny. 21 years of trains. So one of my friends at the Alano Club in Wenatchee called me one day and they said, hey, there was this guy here from the Department of Corrections and he was talking about housing and that there is a lack of housing in the recovery world. And also I remember sitting in some meetings and heard Oxford. I live in an Oxford house. Well, what's an Oxford house? And it's like, oh, well, it's a bunch of people that are in recovery and we all, share a room and we share, the kitchen, we share the bathrooms, but we're all just trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to stay sober and hold each other accountable. And I was like, wow. And then, so I ended up talking to the DOC guy and I had these apartments over in Yakima and it was a fourplex and they're not in a great neighborhood. I was a bit of a slumlord. I was always embarrassed because of the way they looked. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to just change these units. I'm going to try this and I'm going to see what happens. And because that's what I do. I'm just one of those people that's like, you know what? I see a need. I like it. And here we go. And so that's what I did. And January of 2024, I started working on these apartments and I did one at a time and remodeled all 4 of them in a couple of months. And I did it very cheap. I didn't have a lot of money, right? Because as I was going through 2023, I was just trying to get this right and this right. So I wasn't worried about how many houses am I selling? What does that look like? As long as I can, take care of myself and my kid, that was more what I was worried about. And so I ended up, friend of a friend of a friend said, hey, you should talk to this person. He opens up sober living. And so I ended up hooking up with a person in Yakima who helped me open up the first set of my sober living houses. And we had 16 guys and it was full immediately. And I was like, oh my God, and I'm watching these guys change their lives. Right. And there's such a stigma behind recovery, behind people that are in prison, an incarcerated individual, a homeless person with the sign sitting on the side of the road, and I am very bougie. I am very bougie and I'm also very judgmental, right? Like I lived that life of, I'm not giving that guy any money sitting right there, and, oh, you're a felon. And, and then things changed. I actually had been with a person who had been incarcerated for a very long time. And so that happened right before I got sober. And that kind of changed my view of people who have been incarcerated for long periods of time, because people get institutionalized. And that is something that is not, you can't just unwind that. Mm-hmm. It takes years and it takes the want from that individual to be able to start the unwinding process and to look at life differently, and so I started working with these guys. I ended up selling my house in Wenatchee. I bought another house in Yakima, 12 more beds. So then we were at 28. That was in 2024. And again, that house was filled up and I was like, holy cow. So I'm living over in Western Washington, but I've got all these houses in Eastern Washington. And I was like letting this person who helped me open these houses run these houses. Well, then something happened, and over a course of events, I basically got thrown into being the manager of these houses. Mm-hmm. And that was quite a learning experience because I was doing it from afar. And when you're doing something from afar, you're definitely not micromanaging. You don't see the day-to-day stuff. And then all of a sudden I was in the middle of the day-to-day stuff. And I was like, oh my God, mm-hmm. This is not about just putting a roof over an individual's head. This is about coaching, leading, creating opportunities for a new way of life and a new way of living. And so my idea of, we're just going to open up a bunch of houses and put people in them, which is kind of I have a lot of investors that come to me and they're like, hey, I have this house and I want to start some sober living. And I'm like, do you have any idea what that looks like? Do you have any idea what these people, like, this is a life and death thing. This is not like throw 10 guys into a house and, hey, I'll see you on the 1st to collect your rent. Like, that is not even close to it's a, you have to have a manager that lives on site, and you have to be present, and you have to have guidelines and rules and accountability and standards and chores. And oh my God, I've heard so much about fucking dishes. Do your fucking dishes. You're a grown ass man. Do your fucking dishes, right? Clothes in the dryer, or the wash, not flipping your, I mean, it's the most dumbest thing. It turns into these huge fights. And so there's so much craziness that goes into these houses. And so anyway, all of a sudden I learned about all this stuff, right? So then I started going, there's a place in Everett called the Recovery Cafe. And so I started going into the Recovery Cafe and talking to people, because all of a sudden I learned that, I've been networking with real estate agents for the last 20 years. I needed to network with people in the recovery, realm, and start meeting those people and start talking to those people. And so then I got signed up to do this class, and it's called Recovery Coach Academy. So now I'm a certified recovery coach, and I'm going to become a facilitator. And I don't know, we've been working on this for a year and a half, but I'm going to be teaching classes. And so I go to the Recovery Cafe, which kind of ended up being my office. I would, hang out there and people think, oh, it's a cafe. And it's well, not exactly. It's a place for people in recovery, and it doesn't matter what you're recovering from, but you have to be a member there. And to become a member, you basically go to this 45-minute spiel on why you should be a member. And then you go to a circle, and it's basically like a little mini meeting. And it's an accountability thing. You go once a week, and, and that's how you get to go. And they have soup and salad every day for free. They have coffee, and so you can just go in there and hang out. Now, the hodgepodge of people in there is, I'm known as Fancy Lady, which is, I've gotten rid of that, but that was what people called me. And so that was towards the middle to end of 2024. Yeah. And then an opportunity came to me to buy a house on contract. So it was no money out of pocket. It was very, it worked. They just wanted the cash flow. They didn't care so much about, how much down and this and that and the other. Just make the payment. We just want the cash flow. We don't want to, deal with the tax implications. And so I said, okay. And that's what we did. We closed on that house in December of 24. And then I started remodeling it. And I wasn't remodeling it to make it beautiful. I was changing it so that we could turn this into another recovery house. Mm-hmm. We added another bedroom and, just did some things. And January 1st, 2025, we opened up that house. As I was sitting at the Recovery Cafe one day, it was maybe a couple days at the end of December, I had somebody approach me and said, hey, there's this guy I'm working with, and he's homeless. He has grit and tenacity, and he really wants to get sober, and he really needs housing, but he doesn't have any funding. Can you help him? And I said, yes, because there are funding sources. We just have to find them. And it's just a matter of, figuring out who to talk to and advocating for yourself. And so I met this guy at the cafe, and I had this, I don't have it anymore. I just traded it in a couple months ago, but I had this Jeep Rubicon, ginormous lime green, gecko green, I think is what it was called, with the 37-inch tire. I mean, the most obnoxious thing you've ever seen driving down the road. That was my vehicle. So he said, well, I think I can get funding, but I need to go to Linwood and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'll just give you a ride. So his name is Jeremy. Jeremy has been one of the most influential people in my journey over the last, since January of last year. Jeremy and I work side by side every single day now. This man went from not having anything, and I mean anything, to he has sobriety. He has custody of his 5-year-old son. He does have 3 older kids, but he has custody of his 5-year-old son. He is the manager of the managers. So he runs all of my houses. He is a paid employee. He has a vehicle. He has insurance. He has a driver's license. He has all of these things that he's never had before. He's in he's 37 now. but I've got to watch not only him, but other individuals. And, we in Keller Williams, because I've been there for so long and they call it Kellerized and drink the Kool-Aid and here's the fire hose and, you're getting all of this information and go to this class and go to that meeting and, sign up for family reunion and go to mega camp and blah, 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 and get a MAPS coach. And I used to be resistant to those things. Like I wanted to do them, but I was like, meh, I'm not really getting anything out of this. I might get one nugget or whatever, but I've been able to, now that I have a clear head because the fog is lifted, I have been able to take what I learned for 20 years and implement it into not only myself, but in others. And it has nothing to do with real estate, but it has everything to do with helping another individual and coaching them and helping them see their blind spots and their weaknesses. And so we opened up Mukilteo January. Then I had an investor purchase. So this is what it's turned into is my investors now see what I'm doing and they have buy-in and they're like, hey, if I buy this house, do you want to rent it? Yep, I sure do. So we opened up Mukilteo in January of 25. We had a Everett property on Colby open in the end of January of 25. One of my good buddies who is a property manager called me and he said, hey, I have this 6-bedroom house. Do you want it? And I said, yep. And so in April of 25, we opened up that house. And then somebody that actually my old neighbor that I've known for 20 years, he called me and he said, hey, I have this 4-plex up in Arlington. Do you want it? And so we have just grown and grown and grown. I had another guy come to me in May. The conversation started earlier in the year, but by May, we had taken over the house in Wenatchee. I had a Airbnb that is no longer an Airbnb in Leavenworth. The house that I was living in Lake Stevens is now a house. So, and then in October 1st was one of probably the most challenging things that we've done. And I had a operator who's been doing recovery houses for 15 years call me and he said, I'm ready to retire. I don't want to do this anymore. He's in his 70s. He's just done. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, well, we'll come over and we'll check it out. Well, he had already checked out mentally. He was like, I'm done with this. What he didn't know and what I didn't know is that what we were walking into was a disaster. It was another 4-plex. So we call it's 4 different units, but 24 people at that place. And then a 16-bed house that was one of them was full of bed bugs. The other one was full of cockroaches. Oh. And the 4-plex there were 16 guys living in it at that time. And we went in there and we ended up keeping 2 because the rest of them were using because there was no accountability.
Sure.
There was nobody checking on them. There was nothing. It was crazy to me. Right. And you go in and you hate to kick people out and then they're homeless. But at the same time, you can't run a clean and sober recovery house when everybody's, got a dirty UA. Right. And so it took us 2.5 months back and forth to Yakima every weekend. And sometimes during the week to deal with all of the things, thousands of dollars in bug remediation. And I've learned more about fucking bed bugs and cockroaches. It was like, oh my God. Yeah. So that was like the biggest undertaking that we've had. Also in this process, I met my now fiance. I met him. He was actually in treatment and I had taken a couple of the guys to a meeting at a treatment center where he was at. And we're all just sitting there and having this meeting, right? And, my name's Lynn and I'm an alcoholic and so is everybody else or an addict or whatever. And I remember Caleb standing up and, they always say, does anybody have any proud time? He's like, I'm Caleb and I have 16 days. And I was like, who's that? You're not supposed to do that. Wow. And so anyway, I saw him and then when he got out, he happened to go to the meeting that I went to get my 2-year coin. And so it was 2 years on the day I wanted to get that coin. And so I went to that meeting, and by God, there he was again. I'm Caleb and I have 30 days. He just gotten out of treatment that day. And I was like, there's that guy again. I swear that's that guy again. So then all of a sudden, because he gets out of treatment, he's at the recovery cafe every day. There's this Caleb guy. And then I could see him like, you know.
He was fancy pants.
Yeah. He's like, where's this fancy lady? And then I was walking out to the Jeep one afternoon, and he yells at me, he goes, hey, maybe someday you can give me a ride in that sweet Jeep.
That was his pickup line.
Oh boy. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, maybe. And then, we have a little bit of dialogue here and there. And then I saw him again at that meeting, and it was unintentional, right? You just go to meetings and then you see people, and he was the greeter. So the greeters are supposed to give people hugs. So he greeted me. And we went in, did the meeting, and then came back out after the meeting. Well, you're not supposed to still be the greeter, but he was definitely still the greeter. And it was like, hey, I have this business idea, and I know that you're really successful and you're really smart and blah, blah, blah. And would you ever want to hear my idea? And I was like, being an entrepreneur, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's grab coffee or whatever that looks like. And so we exchanged numbers, and then, what turned into a business conversation turned into more than a business conversation. But Caleb and I have been together literally, I don't want to say ever since that day, but basically ever since that day. And so without him and without Jeremy, I would not be where I'm at right now. Caleb is like my ride or die. We used to go everywhere together. Now it's divide and conquer. Like yesterday morning, we got up and we had to go to Wenatchee, and then we had to drive back, and my son flew in last night from Alaska. And so then we have electric cars now. So then we drove from Wenatchee to North Bend, had to charge the car, then go pick up my son. And then by the time we got home, it was like 10:30. Yesterday was a long day, but there have been so many amazing things that I have been able to do and accomplish. We're 2 weeks away from opening our 22nd house.
Wow.
In January, February, March, April. So 20, 25, 26 months, 22 houses, 175 beds. I have buy-in from so many people. I have people that have watched me go through, the ups and the downs and the crazy Lynn and the dancing on the tables and the loud, obnoxious, unfiltered, just bananas person to a little bit more poised and, a little bit calmer, thoughtful, still very tenacious and still very much failing forward, but making a difference in people's lives and literally changing. I don't know how many hundreds of people's lives I've changed, but this is like literally the beginning, right? This is I still do real estate. I listed a house on Tuesday. I don't care about being a mega agent anymore. I don't care about, making $500,000 a year. I care about making a difference. I care about making a difference in people's lives. I care about being a leader and someone that people look up to. I care about being a parent that my kids look up to now. They're like, especially my oldest daughter, because, I was 16 and I was really young when I had her. And there was a lot that we went through, a lot. And she sees me and she sees what I'm doing. She actually works for me now. She wants to be a part of. She plays on I started a clean and sober softball league, and we started a team last year, and she's on our team this year, and she loves it, and we play together. And I have a relationship with my family, with my kids, I have real relationships. They're not arm's length anymore. They're not, oh, we're just going to go and get fucked up. And that's, the extent of our relationship. I still have a lot of amends to make. I still have a lot of, I'm sorries and, I did you wrong and I shouldn't have done this and blah, blah, blah. But that will come in time when those things are, when it's supposed to happen. But, it's been a wild ride. I mean, my life, people talk about, well, if I had known, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I hadn't gone through what I went through. Right. And, has my life been easy? No, my life has been hard. I have 3 divorces, almost 4, basically. I have, kids that are like seeing me okay now, but, there was a lot of rocky times. My mom and I are building a relationship. I'm someone in the community that people look up to now. And it's pretty amazing, to have people call me or ask me to speak or, hey, you want to take over my house or, how are you doing this? Can you coach me? I mean, there's just so many things. And I'm just for so many of the things that I was resistant for so long. And, listening to certain people over my life who was always pushing me. My God, some people, they just pushed me, right? We have those people and, maybe don't have the super closest relationship with that person anymore or those people, but every time I see them, they are like, what are you doing? What does your life look like? Are you growing? I know, and I'm so grateful for that and for those people because now that's what I do for others. And, some of my people like Jeremy, he talks about, he's like, God, you make me so uncomfortable sometimes. And he's like, this is hard. And I'm like, I know. And then I just smile. I'm like, yep, I know exactly how you feel. I know you might think I don't, but oh boy, do I ever, and we talk about that. And then we talk about that when we have our manager meetings. And about it's okay to be uncomfortable because if you're not, you're just stagnant. And I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to just wake up and go do the same thing day to day, day in and day out. And that's just not exciting to me. What's exciting to me is making a difference. So there's your 30-minute What's Lynn Zielasko. How about that?
I love this. I love this version of you. I love your positivity. I think people have always been drawn to you. I think now the people that are drawn to you are different. I know I also come from KW. You can get so wrapped up and you get so wrapped up. This has nothing to do with the company, but you get so wrapped up in the shit because real estate is a lot of shit. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot. You just see a lot of things that are not great. And sometimes when you get sober, especially, and I know my husband's been sober for 4 years and it's been a journey. It's really hard. It's really hard every day. I know he struggles every day still, even at year 4, he's still like, we just went to a concert, for instance, and he was like, oh my God, I've never went to a concert sober. I've never done this before. He struggled at this concert and I was like, hello, welcome. This is how I am every time, you dick. But I think that now for you, all that to say that now I feel like the people that are drawn to you are bringing you more value. They're bringing you more love and they're coming from a much different place. Because I know that even when we moved, I told my husband when we moved, I don't want party friends anymore. I don't want to hang out with people that just want to party all the time. Yeah, sure, that's fun. And sometimes you miss it. Sometimes you're like, damn. But better things come in your life because you're not so worried about the party. You make a bigger difference by not being the partier than you think.
I couldn't go a day. And it's crazy how quickly, I drank. I mean, I did a lot of things, drank, drugs, all the things, right? Throughout. I mean, I started doing hard drugs when I was 14. I mean, I was wild. While everybody else is out oh, I'm going to get my first boyfriend. I'm like, let's do a line of coke. I mean, it was just crazy. But like to when I was the team leader in 2018 and 2019 at KW, I was also going through a horrible divorce. And I had essentially Kennedy was a baby. She was 1.5, I think, when I filed for divorce, and so here's me with this little person and I was drinking my way through it. And then, because it hurt and I was numbing. And I remember going to New Orleans and coming back and having my boss say, if you don't quit drinking, I'm going to fire you. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. Right. And so for 6 months, I went to a few meetings, but I never opened up a book. I never got a sponsor. It's not that I wasn't serious about it, but I wasn't like, I was just white knuckling it. Mm-hmm. And, everybody's recovery process is different. Some people are in a 12-step program. Some people go to church. Some people, work on their mental health. Right. So like, I'm not here saying you have to go to AA because it's not, my journey is different than yours or his or whoever. Right. But I tried for 6 months and then all of a sudden I was like, I was done. Right. And then about 2 months later, I said, I'm resigning because he was either going to fire me or I was going to quit. And then I just went down this rabbit hole. The crazy thing is that I was so successful at making money.
Yeah.
I could make money. I could sell houses. I could write up an offer in a blackout drunk. It's the most craziest thing, and all of my clients were, drinkers. And so we were always like, well, we're going to go look at houses and then we're going to go, have cocktails or whatever. Right. And that was just what my life looked like. I was in Mexico all the time. I was flying all over the place. My life was fun, except it looked fun. I don't remember going to Mexico. I was a blackout the whole time. I don't remember sitting in first class because I would get plowed and I'd end up falling asleep the whole, every time. I mean, it was just like this blur for like 2019 to 2023. So 4 years, 3.5 years was just a blur. But I went downhill so fast and my life literally revolved around alcohol. And then when I moved to Wenatchee, that was the end. It was like I was drinking morning, noon, night, repeat. Morning, noon, night, repeat. Driving, all of the stuff. And so like everybody was like, well, I didn't think you were that bad. And I'm like, well, I was. No. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. And so like, being able to just claw my way out of that, it was not easy, and there's parts of me that wishes that I had been able to go to treatment, that I had learned some different tools. But at the same time, I did what people told me and I listened. I listened to my sponsor. I listened at those meetings. I listened, because I they always say you're running the show. Well, me running the show is bad. It's just chaos. I live in a different chaos now. It's controlled chaos. And because I'm just that person and I just love that life, like I need variety. I need uncertainty. I need to be able to have something different every day, which is probably why I loved real estate, right? There was always something new every single day, new houses, new people, new problems, fix it.
Yeah. You're a fixer.
I am totally a fixer. I'm a problem solver. I'm working on that codependent thing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful for this life, and I'm not going to say that it's easy. A couple of weeks ago, I went down the rabbit hole of, I felt like I was being judged for something, and we all have insecurities, right? And we're always working on our inner stuff. And I felt like I was being judged. And I was like, well, I'll show you. You want to judge me? We're going to the store. Let's go get some wine. Then you can judge me when I'm white girl wasted and acting like an ass, And Caleb was like, whoa, wait a minute. Easy. But, those things happen and life happens and life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. real estate is busy, and real estate is so much different now than it was 20 years ago when I first started. Agents suck, quite frankly. Agents are assholes. And you know what? They don't want to do any work, but they want to get paid thousands of dollars for doing jack shit.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we drove over and we looked at this property. This property was on 10 acres. It's currently a wedding venue, and it's 3 separate Airbnbs, but also if you do the wedding, then you get the Airbnbs, right? So it's this whole thing. And we're looking at it for a trauma relief center. We want to create, that's the next venture. So this agent, who I will not name, but he's had this property listed for 1.5 years. And it's been listed, I think, for a total of 3 years.
Wow.
You would think this guy would know every nook and cranny of this property, if it has AC, if it how, the wells, the river, because there's a creek and flooding and,
Yeah.
And so for 2.5 hours, we're watching this guy, and I'm like, well, what about this? And what about that? And he's like, well, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, oh my God, how are you the listing agent for 1.5 years on this property that's $2.5 million, and you can't even answer half of my questions, right? And so it's like, people are like, oh, I want to get my real estate license because it's fun to look at houses. And I'm like, that is not even part of, that's like this much. You got to deal with the people and the negotiations and the title and the escrow and the problems and appraisals and inspections. And there's so much shit that goes through it. And, but people are like, oh, I'm just so excited to stage a house. And I'm like, oh my God, don't quit your day job. Then you don't want to poo-poo people's ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, and the conversations are just out of this world. And the entitlement. I just think this world as a whole, the entitlement is just absolutely bananas, and then everybody is hiding behind social media. And so if somebody says something that this person doesn't agree with,
That's the truth.
How do you stay in your own lane? Because that's another thing that they teach us in recovery is to stay in your own lane. Don't fucking worry about what they're doing and what they're doing. And, if it directly affects you, that's different. But let it go. I have that. Let them. Yeah. Mel Robbins. I love that book. Let them. Just fucking let them. Because, if you get so wrapped up in everybody else's shit, you're just miserable. And I don't want to be miserable anymore.
To kind of go off of what you were talking about, agents, I have been finding myself being on the phone with their clients and explaining the process and the next steps and how we can't take care of that. That's something that you need to reach out to your agent or reach out to your lender. And pretty soon it's 25 minutes later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not getting paid for this. Please reach out to your agent.
Yeah.
They should know what your next steps are. It's crazy right now.
I had a guy, so I listed this property Thursday night at 7:30. The next morning, I'm getting these text messages, and it was an out-of-state number. Well, you know how many times my phone rings throughout the day? So I've got this weird spam thing on there. And so anyway, then he calls the office. And so then Brenna is like, Lynn, there's so-and-so wants to talk to you about the house. And so I call this guy back. Because first I thought he was just some solicitor. You get so much crap with listings. Yeah. Oh, we want to, are you looking for leads? And no, I'm not. And he's like, oh, I'm from Florida. That's why my number is. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, I want to see this house, but I have some questions. Does it have AC? Does it have this? Does it have that? And I said, and he's like, can I schedule a time to see it? I said, do you have an agent? Are you working with an agent? Well, yeah, I have a buddy, but I haven't signed an agreement with him. And I said, well, here's what I'm going to tell you is I don't work for free. You need to call your buddy. You need to sign that paper, and he needs to show you the house. I said, otherwise, you're going to work with me. You're going to sign my paper, and then I'm going to show you the house. And he goes, well, you're like, I've looked at 40 houses. And I said, well, you know what? I've been doing this for 21 years, and I'm not going to get my ass sued because your agent doesn't want to do his job.
Right.
And I quite frankly, I don't think that this is going to be a good fit, even if you do want me to show this house, because of the ethics and all of the gray area that you've been doing for the however long you've been looking at houses. Because I mean, I don't know, you looked at 40 houses with 40 different agents, clearly, right? All of those agents could be in trouble. You know, and I'm like, listen, I am not getting in the middle of that. I don't have time for anybody else's bullshit. Like, if you want to sign an agreement, let's go look at this house. If you don't, call your agent. End of story.
Exactly. No. And that is another thing. You have to protect yourself because people are so far out there with, well, you said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, now you're responsible. And well, you know what? Don't talk to me anymore.
Yeah. So, and we're all in such service, like we all are trying to provide a service. And I feel like the service has gone to shit too. And so it's super hard to be somebody who actually wants to give service. And then people just assume like you're not because they're used to working with so-and-so who doesn't give any service. It's very, very crazy. It's like that in it's like that with everything. I mean, shit, it's like that down here in Arizona. Just finding a landscaper or a freaking somebody to come work on your HVAC. It's like a whole thing. You have 10 people that don't show up and then the one person that comes and then they also are like, oh, I'm going to charge you 3 times as much because your house is big.
My mom's 79. She's lived in her house. They built it brand new. It's 28 years old. She needed a new roof. My dad passed away 3 years ago, right? So it's just her. So I put on Facebook, my mom needs a roof, right? And so then, of course, God and their brother, you know, there's 75 roofers. And so I said, Mom, narrow it down to like 3 or 4, you know. She ended up with 5. And they ranged from $37,000 to $63,000 because she lives in a bougie neighborhood. So a couple of them literally turned up her road and added 20 grand to the freaking price tag.
We were just talking about that this morning, that I'm like, if I have somebody come over, I take off my rings, I take off my jewelry. I don't want you to come up to my house to give me a quote. And that's exactly what happens. Everybody up here in the state of Washington feels that they should be paid $120 an hour. And it starts when I get up and think about you in the morning. So if I put my tools in my truck, that's when the clock starts. And then it stops when I arrive home. We are still working on our house 2 years later, 3 years. We bought it 3 years ago. May 5th is when we closed on it. We're still working on it. Siding, $20,000. Paint a container, $5,600. Drop off some rocks, $8,000. I mean, it's just, it just never ends. And then if you say your fix did not fix, okay, well, it'll be $300 for me to come out. What the fuck? You didn't fix it. Yeah, but you know what? I'm really busy right now. But you didn't fix it.
Oh, yeah. The entitlement is just bananas. So I started because these guys that I house, they're like, I can't get a job, which means that they can't pay the rent. If we can't find them a resource, right? So what do? I'm like, we're starting a business. So I started a handyman business, but I can't like effectively launch it because I need somebody else to run it. But like, I'm thinking, you know, how much are we going to charge? Not that much, you know, because these guys are like, I'm not paying them $50 an hour. I'm paying them $20 an hour. Right. And, you know, and so like that's a thing is, you know, everybody wants just all this money and for what? Like, can you just show up?
And that is, you've got this huge quote and then, oh yeah, I can't make it today. What do you mean? You put us on the schedule or you call them and say, you were supposed to be here at 10. Oh, yeah. Okay. How about tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Workmanship and reliability and just self-worth it's just shit right now. And you're right. It's total entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody tell me when I said, you are really expensive. They said, it is 2025. You need to get on board. And I looked at him and I said, get out of here. I'll do it myself. I'll just do it myself. Yeah. I don't. It's crazy. Pure craziness. Yes.
Yeah.
That is wild. So
the world is interesting.
So they have to pay rent to live in these houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they pay rent and you have to give them chores and you have to do all that stuff.
Yep.
Wow.
So
What?
Where do they get funding from? How long do they get to live there?
So, our program says we would like for you to come and work your program and, sort of launch and, essentially live in our house for up to 2 years. If somebody's doing what they need to do and, they're just, it's so expensive over here, right? To go get a freaking 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking at $2,000 a month. It's just bananas, right? So over in Snohomish County, it's $750 a month for rent. Wenatchee's $600, Yakima is $575. And that's a shared, so it's a bedroom with two twin beds, right? So you get, what they get for their rent is they get a space, they get a bed, they get, a dresser, closet, whatever, right? But they're responsible for their hygiene, their clothes, their food. I pay for cleaning supplies, garbage bags. I bring, yesterday we were in Wenatchee and I went and bought a weed eater because they're responsible to maintain the yards. They're each supposed to put in 15 minutes a week. That's not a lot to ask, right? 15 minutes, and that's another thing too, is if they're not doing their chores, they get 2 hours of community service. So you can either do a 15-minute chore or you get 2 hours of community service, right? Last night, one of the guys, he was kind of being a snitch, but he sends a picture of another guy that was vaping in the house. So I was grumpy because we were at the airport and there's all this traffic and whatever. And I said, call him. And this poor kid, he's 36. He was incarcerated for 17 years. He has no social skills. He is completely institutionalized, right? But he's been with me for almost 6 months, and I have seen him make some massive strides.
Nice.
However, he's the one that's standing in the kitchen puffing on this freaking vape. And so I called him and I said, his last name is, and I said, Dennis. I said, are you allowed to smoke or vape in the house? No, ma'am. And I said, were you smoking or vaping in the house? Yes, ma'am. And I said, this is your one and only warning. Yes, ma'am. But that's how you have to talk to them sometimes is, they're children. And it's dude, these are step outside. It's a nice day. Go smoke out there, or curfew. Curfew's at 11 o'clock,
He's stuck at that age he was when he quit.
He is literally stuck at 19, you know?
Because they don't know any different.
Right. So somebody has to stop it.
Once he got off the phone and went, who the fucking squealed on me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So
what do you think what's the biggest lesson you've learned from all this? What do you think one lesson if you've gotten from this trajectory that you've been on?
People just want to be heard. And to not judge a book by its cover, to listen to a person, to ask questions, open-ended questions, and to show compassion.
I love that.
Those are awesome lessons.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think the biggest challenge has been?
to watch people relapse.
Yeah.
To watch people fail when you see them doing good. And it's literally because their self-worth is at an ultimate low. It's a zero. They don't know. They don't think they're worthy of sobriety. They don't think they're worthy of living in a clean house. They don't think they're worthy of having a loving relationship or people that care about them. They can't get past their own denial of the fact that they are worthy of a better life.
Get out
And
of
it's
their own
really
way.
sad to see, especially some of them that have been like, you've watched, they were literally homeless and now they've got some time under their belt and then they got their driver's license and their insurance and a car and they're so excited and then they get a job and then it's too much too fast.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you guys got to dial it back. I know you want it all right now, but you got to dial it back because if you don't, you're going to fucking hit the wall. And that's just what happens. And so, watching them fail is the hardest thing. I had to kick 3 people out yesterday. 3 in one house. It was a sick house. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I have a manager over in one of my houses, and this guy was at that house and he moved to a different house in a different part of Washington. And he was really good at lip service because they are master manipulators. And so it was, oh, this and oh, that. And the house is great and blah, blah, blah. And it's clean and everybody's doing all their stuff and there's no dirty UAs and blah, 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 blah. And I have a gal that helps me with some of my houses that aren't in Snohomish County. And she did UAs on Monday. That manager didn't pass his UA.
Oh.
So he got kicked out. That manager is also on the GRE program, which means he has an ankle monitor. And if he basically is still an inmate, but he is outside.
Right.
And so I actually called and talked to his DOC officer and I advocated for him. And I was saying, this guy's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's working. He's doing all the things. We'll come to find out. He completely pulled the wool over my eyes. And so when I got to the house yesterday, the lady that's helping me with these houses, she said the whole house needs to be UA'd. And so we did. And sure enough, 3 of them were hot. And you got 30 minutes to pack your shit and leave. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's, you don't want to kick anybody out. You don't want to make anybody homeless. The point is to help people, bring them in and create a space so that they can, rehabilitate.
Yeah.
But you also can't save the ones who don't want to save themselves. You can't want it more than they do.
Have you ever had anybody super combative or did they just leave? Do they just know?
Oh no, the victim mentality
I would imagine.
absolutely insane. And also, with this, there's so much mental health.
Yeah.
If you've been incarcerated for a period of time, a long period of time, you have mental health issues. You have PTSD, right? We have PTSD from, whatever life experiences, but like people that are living on the streets that are in fight or flight mode 24/7, whether they're on the streets or they're in a trap house or they're incarcerated or whatever. And that's what these people are. It's just mental health. And like, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm a fucking real estate agent, right? Who got sober. And now I run these houses, but now instead of going to all the rah real estate classes, I'm a recovery coach, certified recovery coach. I'm learning how to, I do coaching every single day. It's important to learn about this disease and about recovery and about helping people move forward. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm passionate about now, is just helping these people. So
I love this. I think this is great. I think you have done, I hear the change in your voice. I see the change in you. I think that, this is amazing. And this is whoever, God, the universe, whoever put you here for a reason. And I think you're doing amazing things. I love this. I think it's so good. And I'm sure your kids are also so proud of you because our kids watch us, right? Our kids see all the bullshit. They learn from us. They do some of the same bullshit because they're like, oh, mom did it. Dad did it, whatever.
Yep.
With that, how are your kids now, because I know, right, you have 4 different kids. They're all different, right? So do you think it's helped? Like, I'm sure Kennedy's thriving now because she sees mom's thriving. And how's your son that wasn't thriving so good? How's he doing? Do you think this is helping him, even if it's not helping him right now? Do you think it's helping him?
For sure. Because when you have children or a child who, you know, has the addictive personality and gets that, right? Because they don't all get it, or they might, or whatever. But like Macy, you know, Macy's good. Macy has, you know, her own challenges in her own life because she's a mom of 4. She's 31, and you know, she's got, you know, a spouse and whatever, and right, and homeowner and all of these things. My 24-year-old just walked in the door, as a matter of fact, but he graduated college last year, and he's living in Alaska right now with his girlfriend. You know, and so we don't, like, I miss him. I picked him up last night. Like, I miss him. He's going to play softball with us tonight. And, you know, so I'll have my son and my daughter and me and Caleb playing softball tonight all together. And that's going to be super fun. Ryder is 21. He'll be 22 in August. Ryder is just like his mom. And nobody's going to tell Ryder what to do. And Ryder is on his own path. And it's one thing when you have a parent who's drinking and then they're like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the validity? There is none. Right. But then you have this parent that not only has gotten sober and going to meetings and like practicing this recovery life, but also created this, you know, empire, essentially. He definitely looks at me different. He quit drinking. He still smokes pot, whatever. That's his
California
journey.
sober. California sober.
Well, California sober is what it is. But I would much rather see him if I would pick, then obviously I would pick that he is completely sober. But alcohol for him, like me, was his demise. Mm-hmm. And so at least he has learned that. And, you know, he works full time. He's got a girlfriend. He lives with me. He pays rent. He does not have a driver's license. And he drives. And so I said, well, just know that I do not condone that, nor am I going to be, don't make me your first phone call, because I'm not picking you up and I'm not bailing you out. So, yeah.
I love that you're setting boundaries now too. I think that's another thing that's so freaking hard, right? We literally, setting boundaries is one of the hardest things, especially with our kids, because we're suckers. Yeah. I like that. I like that you're setting boundaries. I know Trish and I talk about boundaries all the time and all the things, because it's so freaking hard. Kids, coworkers, people in your life. It's hard to set those.
Yeah.
Kennedy, how's she doing?
She's doing good. She played basketball in the winter, and she's doing karate, martial arts stuff right now. She's kind of bounced around to a few schools, but she's very resilient. Thank God. She's good. She's also like, she looks like she's 15 because she is so tall, but she's doing really good. So yeah, everybody's doing as, well.
Good as can be.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No major crises.
Seriously, I love that, because we can't all say that. Not everybody comes back from what you've been through. So I mean, pat yourself on the back. I think that, I love this. All right, Trish.
So normally what we do is we end our show with a couple of questions, kind of off the cuff questions. So this is to tell you a little bit about your personality. So, Lynn, are you sock, shoe, or a sock, shoe kind of person?
Oh.
When you put on your shoes, do you put on
sock, shoe?
That's what you do. All right. So your personality, you're orderly, comfort driven, and routine oriented. Well, you are now.
I mean, maybe now, but I don't know.
Yeah, seriously. Before she had one sock on, half a shoe.
Yes, right.
So Angela.
Same. Yeah.
Exactly. I think we are all sock, shoe, shoe. And as a matter of fact, I tried a sock and a shoe and a sock and a shoe, and it really threw me off. It was just like, this isn't normal.
I like to complete each stage of things. I couldn't put on a sock and a shoe because it's not the completion, right?
No, it's
weird.
It's just not how you do things. All right. What is a food you eat in a way that would get you banned from a fancy restaurant?
Ooh.
I have no idea.
That's a hard one.
I don't know. I love, although I haven't had it in a few years, but I love going out and catching crab and cooking it and dumping it on a picnic table and with nutcrackers and stuff like that. That's not a very graceful way of eating anything.
How about you, Angela?
I don't know. I feel like everybody eats watermelon pretty sloppy. That's probably like one that like you have to slurp and make a lot of noise to eat it. 'Cause it's like all watery. And I also don't want to eat the whole thing. So I like throw it to the side when I've just bit off the pieces I like. Or you get a seed, right? And you're all like, I'm not trying to do that in a restaurant.
So mine is I enjoy ketchup with my steak. So yeah.
Ketchup with your steak. We did go to a fancy restaurant together where she had steak, but she does like some ketchup.
I do. I love ketchup.
Go.
Yeah. She wants what? But it's okay if you put a béarnaise sauce on it, but what's wrong with a little bit of ketchup? I don't see a problem. All right, last question. What's the most unnecessarily thing you've ever bragged about?
Ooh, a lot. I ran on ego for 90% of my life. I still do. Brag about, I don't know, I'm driving a Hummer right now. How about that?
There you go.
An electric Hummer.
I was going to say, and it's electric.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my gosh, that's so funny. Remember when the Hummer first came out and everybody was like, oh, well, it gets like 8 miles to the gallon. Oh, my God. And so now, yeah, how smart were they to make it electric?
Yeah.
I had an H2 back in the day, and I was driving freaking 50 miles in a Hummer one way every day. Oh my gosh, it was the worst, actually.
That's crazy.
Such a terrible idea.
So
Lynn and I have the same love of cars. I have a hot pink BMW right now. And she is sexy.
Yeah. Mine is, it's so funny. When I read this question, something popped in my head when Matthew was like 3 years old. And I can still picture where I was. I was in the driveway talking to a neighbor and saying how articulate my son was. And I thought, and she just kind of looked at me and went, okay. But what a weird thing to brag about. Oh my
Meanwhile, he's peeing in the front yard. That's funny.
Oh, all right. No problem. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Yes. Thank you, Lynn, so much for coming. It's been such a great experience hearing about your journey. What a great journey, and everything that you've gained and what you're giving back to other people. That's amazing. That is really amazing.
Thanks.
Yes. And if somebody was to want to find Lynn or knows somebody who needs sober living or wants to buy a house, where can they find you?
You can find me on, I'm all over Facebook, Lynn Zielasko, or kennedysplace.org. We have an online application. Caleb is actually our intake specialist. So we have people go online, fill out an application, and then he schedules a phone interview. Real estate, I've had the same phone number for 30 years. Hit me up through, it's not hard to find me. That's for sure.
And your houses have women and men, right? Do you have?
I have 3, so we're about to open our 3rd women's house. Yeah. Yep. So 19 men's houses and 3 women's houses. 1 in Leavenworth, 1 in Lake Stevens, and then the new one will be in Marysville.
Okay, totally separate, but who's harder, the men or the women?
Women. Horrible. Good Lord.
Yes. That's what I would get.
I'll tell you what, if you want me to come on here and give you some stories, oh my God.
Give us one snapshot. One.
I don't know if it's so inappropriate, but it's just.
They like that. Trish and I talked about shitting and all kinds.
Okay. Phone sex for 3 hours with your prison inmate boyfriend with a vibrator. While your mates are home. There you go.
How about that? That's a little long.
That's a little long.
Nobody got time. Who has 3 hours, first of all?
Well, I know I don't.
I don't either.
Yesterday because of that. So
yeah.
The stories, you can't make this shit up. It's just like, oh my God.
It's like real estate, right? It's the same thing, just
not quite as
different.
Yeah.
Same thing, but different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see more.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.